I don't like insurance companies. Flat out. Bless their hearts. I like people. I even like insurance adjusters. I just don't like the way they treat people. Wes, we've been talking a lot about what happens during a case and at the beginning, the middle, the end. What kind of experiences have you had with some clients that you've seen how their lives have been affected after the case is all the way done?
It's interesting. As you're fighting for the client during the case, one of our jobs is to outline the damages, of course. And I remember a case, we had a lady who was actually leaving the hospital. This wasn't a medical malpractice case, but she had been in the hospital, had got the treatment she needed. She had received a hip replacement, if I recall, and she was going to get in her car, and a hospital worker, he's actually a volunteer, but he was trying to help her into her car, and he didn't put the brakes on the wheelchair.
Oh,
And so she slipped out from underneath it and broke her hip, the one that had just been fixed, and they had to wheel her right back in and fix it. The doctor was so mad.
don't we have to say bless his heart right here?
Yes, bless his heart. Yes, ex-Corps volunteer. And he felt horrible, you can imagine. But that client came in with her husband, and we walked through the odd facts of the case and what we thought we might be able to do. And in the end, one of the things we had argued for was because the way the hip had rebroken, and because of what the doctor had to do to fix it, her mobility was really restricted for the remainder of her life. She was, I think, 70 when she had the procedure. And we had an expert come take a look at her, and he recommended that she get a certain type of van to be transported in. And she, for the first, I want to say, year of the litigation process, she had been outside of the home only a handful of times because she just couldn't be mobile because of this hip. And when the case got done and they paid us a good settlement, we were able to get this van for her. And I remember them pulling up to our office in this van. This is a few months afterwards. And both she and her husband were just so excited to see us and to see the van roll up, and they wanted to show us everything in the van. Here's how it works. Press this button, move this lever, and she would get in and out. And I know, wow, that really makes a huge difference for this woman. And it was not an inexpensive vehicle. You can imagine these vans have all these bells and whistles, but it gave her life outside of her home back. And she'd been without it well over a year. And it was just a neat experience to see how our work in the office could affect somebody when their case is done.
That says a lot about your relationship that you built with them, because they wouldn't want to come and show that to just anybody.
Yeah.
They consider you family at that point.
For sure.
And I love that. I love it when our clients come back and talk with us later on, and when they consider us that close, and most of them do. A case that I was thinking about along those lines was, we have a client who was a double amputee on her legs.
Yeah.
You'll remember this case. Yeah. And it was a tough case just because the damages were so bad. And the insurance company just didn't want to pay what it was really worth. And so we went to a mediation. We filed suit. Not until the end of the mediation did I know how many people were in the other room. So this was in a high-rise in Phoenix. The mediator was going between the two rooms. There was just me and the client, and one other attorney who was working on the case was in the room, and her husband. And at one point, the husband and the other attorney had to use the restroom. They walked out, and she shared some very personal things with me, and just things about some feelings that she had had through this case, and about how blessed her life was in spite of the difficulties that she went through. This woman became one of my heroes. I really admire just the courage and the strength and the outlook of this woman who lost both of her legs. We were able to get a really, really outstanding result for her. because of the result that she got, she flew over to Australia because the technology is available in Australia where you can have rods put into your legs, into the femur. And instead of having to put this major contraption on when you put a prosthetic on, you can put a snap on. And so she could snap on the prosthetic. She could snap it on and snap it off. And so she had this piece of, I think it was platinum, put up in as a rod inside, inserted into her femur, both femurs. And then she had the prosthetic underneath there. What a difference it made in her life. And she was able to come back and show me how it worked. And I was just really, really grateful that we were able to help her out so that she could afford to get something that's not even available in the United States yet. It's not yet FDA approved, but she was able to get that done. That was cool.
It was a special case on a special lady.
Very.
She's a remarkable human for sure. She went through a lot. You mentioned treating clients like family, and part of that is understanding as best you can someone's injuries and how it's affecting them. You can't understand it fully, of course, but unless you immerse yourselves in their case and in their lives to some degree, you won't get there. And it reminded me of a case that our partner Gary Porter had. This was years ago when I was first starting out here, and I have never forgotten how Gary handled himself and this case. He represented a young girl who had an injury that caused her to be wheelchair bound and also caused her to have her limbs be stuck in certain positions when she would have spasms, we'll call them. And very painful, very awkward, especially for a young girl. And I remember Gary took this case through litigation, and he was at a mediation, and he was frustrated because he didn't feel like the other side was really understanding just how these injuries were affecting this girl. And I think this girl was late teens, if I recall correctly. And by the way, Gary should be telling this story, but he, of course, is on a mission in South America, and so he's not here. But he told me, I said, okay, so what'd you do to help the other side see how this was affecting her? He said, at mediation, I had the thought, they need to see her. And so I asked the mediator, can we go in the other room, my client and I, and show opposing counsel and this insurance adjuster exactly how this is affecting her physically? They need to lay eyes on her when this is happening. And mediator went in the other room and asked them, and sure enough, they said okay. And they kind of walked through her injuries with her there in the room and asked a few more questions of her and went their separate ways, and the case ended up getting settled for a good number. But Gary told me later on that opposing counsel talked about to him how effective that was and how the insurance adjuster didn't really get it until that moment. And for one, I think you would agree with me. I'm sure Gary abides by that same principle of your clients is your family, and you got to treat them that way. And he also is listening and trying to follow the impressions that'll guide the way he practices law. But he brought out the human nature of those injuries and his client to this insurance adjuster, and it shifted paradigm of how the case was evaluated. And the only way you get there, like I've said, is not by treating clients like numbers, but by like humans.
That's a great example. And Gary is so great at that.
Yes, he is. Matt, we've talked a lot about different areas of personal injury law today. How long have you been practicing law?
I've been practicing 30 years.
And in those 30 years, how long has your focus been on personal injury work?
When I first started practicing, I was doing personal injury, but I started this firm and I started it from scratch. And so at that time, I would take any kind of case that came in the door. I eventually whittled my way down to personal injury. One, I felt I had a big passion for it. I don't like insurance companies, flat out. Bless their hearts. I like people. I even like insurance adjusters. I just don't like the way they treat people. And so I felt like I was a bit like David versus Goliath,
Sure.
handling these cases against insurance companies that have unlimited resources. And so that's essentially why I do what I do. I was able to whittle down the areas of law to just personal injury. And that's what I've been doing for these last, I'll say personal injury only for the last 26 years. The first 4 years were just really a lot of different areas of law, but I was able to whittle it down. So for 26 years, only personal injury, and I love it. I love what I do. I enjoy coming to work every day. I love my clients. I love our staff. I even love you, Wes.
Oh, thank you.
I'm grateful for the way that God has blessed me to be able to support a family by doing this, by doing something I really love to do. And I really love helping people.
I think for me, I love it for all the same reasons. Most specifically, the human nature of it. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be drawing up contracts all day long. Or to doing wills and trusts, or my dad's a tax attorney. Oh, I could never. um,
Oh, that's rough.
Being able to, and we kind of talked about this earlier, see how your work affects people on a day-to-day basis, and helping people walk through an intentionally complicated process. That's the most gratifying part of what we do for me.